Okay, so I figured I'd go ahead and make a video explaining exactly how I captured and put together the VGA Dreamcast versus NullDC comparison video. A couple of people mentioned that I should have used VGA on the other video I have, which was captured using S-Video. And yeah, I initially kind of thought like, oh well, the way YouTube encodes everything and the way I have to capture the Dreamcast VGA box actually doesn't make that big of a difference in the end, but I kind of improvised and found a different way to capture my Dreamcast, and it looks a lot better, so that's why I decided to go ahead and make the video in the first place. But let me go over here. This is the VGA box I use. This is standard Retrobit VGA box. Um, there was a little bit of noise on my VGA modded Dreamcast, which I'm quite upset about. So I didn't want to chance it, so I used the Retrobit VGA box to capture it. And apparently it's not the best VGA box, but it is the most accessible and the most common. And as far as I can tell, the quality is actually very good, so I don't really have a problem with it. Okay, moving on. This is the capture card I used. As you can see, it takes straight VGA input, as opposed to a lot of other capturing solutions. You have to go and use a converter or an adapter, which actually makes the image quality not so great. I initially had a capture card which just took HDMI in and that's it, and I used a converter box to convert the signal to HDMI. It was a cheap one and it looked like crap. I was really disappointed, so I returned that capture card and got this one from Newegg. Um, Newegg doesn't offer any other capture card that takes VGA input as far as I could tell. This is the one I picked up anyway. I didn't really look at Tiger Direct or Micro Center. I figured they wouldn't have it because Newegg tends to have a larger selection, and I didn't want to buy anything off of eBay that's secondhand. I don't like buying PC components that are secondhand at all. So yeah, this is the card I used. And actually, that's where the problem came in at first. Okay, so I went on explaining how, for a second there, how the Pro option and selecting everything manually doesn't really work with the AverMedia software. And it turned out this time, as I'm trying to prove that it doesn't work, to function perfectly, as you can see here. Yeah. So either way, I'd usually go to Amateur and select the video source dsub, go ready. And the problem with this is whenever you go ahead and capture, using this software, it compresses the image down a fair bit and actually doesn't make it look that great. And when it takes VGA input, it's a little finicky. So what I decided to do, I don't know if you can see here, this is the Fraps overlay. I have Fraps open right here. And basically, I just streamed the image through to my PC using this software and captured using Fraps. That way, Fraps uses a lossless codec and it looks a lot better. The file size is much, much larger, but I mean, these were kind of small files, the little bits of gameplay that I was capturing, so it doesn't really matter too much. So yeah, that is how I captured the VGA input using Fraps instead of this kind of shitty AverMedia software here. And as far as NullDC goes, I use Fraps as well. And I'll just show you my options here. The options are pretty much standard. Cable type I switched to VGA. I don't think it's using VGA by default. And maximum supported, highest quality, and the aspect ratio I used borders because I don't like that stretched look when you take a 4:3 image and put it in 16:9. It looks kind of crappy. But yeah, the NullDC settings are pretty much standard, so that's that. And I use Fraps, as I said, to record that. And just one more thing I want to mention is when I took it into Vegas, usually whenever I record PC game footage and then render it in Vegas, it shows up a little darker. So I did use some brightness plugins here, just a tad bit, to go ahead and adjust the that's the wrong one there. Yeah, just to adjust the brightness and contrast a bit to make it look more like it does when you actually capture it. Okay, so I did forget to mention a couple things. One of those is, forgot to mention my project settings in Vegas. These are them. And full resolution running quality is basically all I changed here. You can see the rest. Something I also noticed is that AverMedia records widescreen. There's nothing I can really do about that. So in Vegas, I went ahead and stretched, if you can see here, stretch it out to get it into a 4:3 aspect ratio. And lastly, I forgot to show you my render settings, which are here, which is right here. The only thing I'm not quite sure about here is the maximum bitrate, if I should have that higher. Either way, I only render using my processor, which is a 6100. It's overclocked, but it really doesn't render that quickly at all. I don't use OpenCL because I have a AMD 280X, and it's buggy, to say the least. There's some artifacting going on, and personally I kind of wish I waited till the 970 came out from NVIDIA, but that's sort of irrelevant. Yeah, so these are my rendering settings here. YouTube does recommend a bitrate of 50 megabytes per second. It recommends variable bitrate, and I have all the bells and whistles turned on here to make it look as good as possible. So yeah, that's what I forgot to mention, and that pretty much ends the video. Let me minimize here. If there are any questions you have, just go ahead and put them in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and answer them. Thanks for watching.
Ah, you see? That wasn't so hard now, was it?